Stay right where you are. This is B.E.P Talks. Hello and welcome back to another edition of B.E.P Talks, where we bring you, oh my gosh, such an assortment of experts from all around the world, expert in a very wide range of topics, all of them here to beliefs, their experiences, and their passions with you, hoping to motivate you, inspire you, educate you, and sometimes entertain you. It's all good. It's all good. And today certainly will not disappoint. Our very special guest today is going to talk to us about a topic I am so excited about, actually. So, with no further ado, let me just introduce Amy Quesenberry. Join us, Amy. There you are. Hello, and thank you. Thanks for
Hi,
the
Beth.
time.
Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure and such an honor to be here.
Thank you. Such kind words. I appreciate that. I have been so excited to speak with you because you speak about topics that are very meaningful to me. And we're just going to have a wonderful conversation just between us gals and learn a little bit more about what it is that you talk about. Just to let the audience know, you are a keynote speaker, most noted for your motivational speaking, for the beliefs, the experience, and the passions that you bring to your audience. I know that you have 20 years of experience in what you name as human capital.
Yes.
I always like to make sure that everybody's in the same conversation at the same time. So, would you be so kind as to share for us what you mean by human capital?
Yes. So, human capital, also known as human resources or HR, and really it's caring for the employees. It's putting together processes and policies and structures, whatever that may be. Oftentimes, HR ideally should be considered a partner to operations and executive leadership so that we are making decisions that are healthy for the company, but healthy for the employees as well. Because without the employees, what kind of company would we have? We wouldn't have a company at all.
Right, right. So correct me if I'm wrong. I always kind of viewed HR as kind of the bridge, the liaison, if you will, to try to make the needs and the wants, the what's possible and what's not possible, to kind of come together between the company and the employees. Is that a reasonable view?
That's a great way to put it. Yes. Yes. And when you think of HR, the thing is it, for some companies, it can be incredibly broad, everything from training to onboarding, the hiring, the firing, deploying technology and software that's specific to the employee experience. So really it is everything throughout the employee experience or the employee life cycle. So much of what happens in that life cycle in the environment that I came from was about HR. And I did everything from recruitment to optimizing processes, deploying technology. I traveled around the world and I was able to work with HR teams and find out what were some of the best processes, best environments, why were they like that? And then I would figure out what that secret sauce was and then recreate that in the other sites. It was incredible.
So when you say you traveled around the world, that's so fascinating. Did you find that from place to place, country to country, even from industry to industry within a country, there had to have been, I imagine, cultural differences?
Yes. And that was a key part because sometimes you can have a process that works in one environment, but it cannot be deployed or deployed in the same way because of a cultural difference. And so you really need to, me as an outsider, I'd have to have a really open mind and say, although this worked over here, talk to the local experts and say, hey, this worked over here. Tell me what you think about it being here. Can we deploy this? What do you think? You can't just come in, drop, and walk away and leave. You've really got to finesse it and understand, is this going to work here? And if it's not, then let's talk about why not. What can work? How can we modify this? And I would say that's kind of a blueprint for life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
No,
We
that's very, very true. It's the devil is always in the details. The
can't.
nuances are what make things wonderful
Mhm.
and kind of original and exciting. So not everything is transferable, as it is. That might be easier for a lot of things, but it probably wouldn't be as exciting or as fun.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just thinking. So now, over your 20 years of experience in human capital, how have you seen it change?
Mm. Well,
Or have you seen it change? I mean, people are still people.
yeah, I think that it's not necessarily the time that's changed, it's the environment. So,
Okay.
what I mean by that is whoever is the head of HR, what type of relationships do they have with the rest of the leaders in the organization? Because for HR to be effective, we have to have a seat at the table. We cannot influence if we don't have a seat at the table, meaning we are in the room where executive decisions, strategic decisions are being made. And so, whoever the head of HR is, where are they strategically in the organization? That is number one key. So, I would say that is, it's not necessarily the spectrum of time, it's the environment that you're in.
And that's very practical, actually, when you say it, because why have other team members at the table noodling about what they think should be done and how it should be done, and even moving forward on it or selling the process to each other? And then HR says that's not going to work for an assortment of reasons, including legal, because there's a lot of compliance. It's
Mhm.
not just, hi, welcome, why do you want to work? There's a lot of compliance. And of course, the bigger the organization, the bigger the company. And I imagine if you're dealing in certain industries, healthcare, where there are so many, thankfully, legalities and compliance issues. So that's a very good point. I never thought about that. I like
Yeah,
practical solutions, and that's one practical solution.
yeah. I do think, now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I think technology has impacted the HR experience and in some ways not for the better. And what I mean by that is trying to do a cookie cutter AI solution for a human. It's called human capital, human resources for a
Mhm,
reason.
mhm.
We need to be able to connect. You mentioned it, we're the bridge, right? For us to really effectively, positively impact the employee experience, we need to understand what our employees are going through. AI isn't going to do that. Technology isn't going to do that. It's having people connecting with people. And so this has kind of hurt my heart a little bit, in the way that I've seen the changes there.
So again, let's put the humanity back in human resources. That
Yes.
brings me to a word that when I was getting to know you and wanted to invite you onto B.E.P Talks, you used the word compassion.
Mm,
So again, going back to a previous statement, so we're all in the same conversation the same way. Define, if you will, what you mean by compassion.
yeah. So it's it's When I think about compassion, it is seeing that there is a need, and whether it's your own or somebody else's, and you're not going to just sit there and say, "Oh, that's too bad. I hope everything gets better," which is, which is kind, but there is no action there. Compassion comes with an action where we see that they're suffering and we say, I'm going to do something about it.
Mhm, mhm. I'm trying to think, I should have done this. The etymology of the word compassion, meaning with, passion,
Mm,
with
mm,
passion.
mhm,
How have we lost, or in your expert opinion, I guess if we've lost compassion in the world, we will have lost it in the workplace. That's kind of the continuum of life. Have we lost a degree of compassion?
mm. I would almost question if we ever had it. And what
Oh,
I yeah.
oh,
And
okay. Bad
so
news.
yeah. So if you look at the evolution of the workforce, if you go back to like the 1940s and
Mhm,
you think about, 1940s until probably about the 1990s, there were a lot of manufacturing environments. This was big, this was huge. Picture somebody standing for 8 hours
mhm,
with a 30-minute lunch, two 15-minute breaks,
mhm.
and they're doing this repetitive task over and over and over again. Now that has transitioned to people now being on the phone. So maybe it's a different type of manufacturing environment. When we are, I'll call it chained to our desk, and somebody is dictating if we can get up and just use the restroom, uh, there's no humanity there.
No,
That is so we so it I understand that companies are exist to make a profit,
mhm,
but there needs to be a balance. There needs to be some type of balance between let's create a healthy environment for our employees so that they can prosper. Because when you think about it, a third of our life is
mhm,
spent working. And then how you're treated, right? How you're treated at that work, how you're made to feel, what you endure, then feeds over into other aspects of our life. And so if you come home and you've had a great experience,
right.
that's a ripple. That's
Mhm,
a
mhm,
ripple in that
mhm,
pond.
mhm,
And this is why, and I'm gonna take you to a place that you're probably gonna ask me later, but I'm gonna bring you there now. This is why one of my talks is how you show up matters. This is why how you show up matters is so important, because how you show up directly impacts how you make somebody feel. Are you lifting them up, or are you restraining them or hurting them or making them feel less than? That's a ripple effect. I think I took us off
mhm.
course, but
No, 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 no. I just like the stream of consciousness. Going back to something else, when you say when they've had a great experience in the workplace, listen, I live in a world of logic, practicality, and common sense. If you're coming home from work having had a good day at work, for whatever reason it might have been, it's likely you're going to take that attitude and that perspective through your front door. It will impact whoever's waiting for you on the other side and whatever happens for the next number of hours before you go to bed with a good attitude or a bad attitude and everybody else around you. So that's what I'm saying. It's such common sense. So when you made the very, very logical point, thank you, logical point about companies need to make money, but for me, the best way to make money is and was always, I've employed hundreds and hundreds of people, is to make it as great an experience for them as I possibly could. That you're not doing me a favor just by showing up.
Mhm.
You're not doing yourself a favor just by showing up, which takes us back to what you said, how you show up matters. So that's on both sides of the coin, is it not? It's from the, we'll call it from the employer perspective and the employee perspective. We're partners in this.
That
It's
is
love and marriage.
absolutely right.
It only goes good when it comes together. It's two sides of the same coin. So
Yeah.
do we have do a lot of companies have the wrong people in that HR role?
It would be unfair for me to cast a judgment, and that's because I'm not familiar with all the
Fair
companies
enough.
out there,
Fair
right?
enough. Fair
But
enough.
I can tell you that based on the data that's out there that you can do on any search, I wouldn't just say HR, but I would say leadership in general from a
Mm,
managerial perspective. And what I mean by that is oftentimes people are promoted into a managerial role because they were exceptional at the job that they did. But did that company ever provide them with how to be an effective manager, a people manager? This is where we fall short sometimes. This is where companies fall short is we're so focused on the job, 90% of their job, which is, creating widgets, we'll say. But what about that 10% that they allocate to that manager to be a people manager, which I
right,
would say if you're a people manager, let's reduce the focus on widget
right.
and and this is leadership, okay? Leadership. Let's reduce the focus on the widget creator, on creating widgets for our people managers, and let's really empower them and support them so that they can be the best people leaders possible. And that's going to look a little bit different for it based on the department, based on the industry, based on the environment, different factors. But I think that that is a great place to start.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? I remember back many, many years ago, in different sales capacities, uh, when I was in management, and the owner of the company would say, "Okay, I want you to pick an assistant. You need another assistant. Who's the best salesperson on the floor?" And I'd say, "I would never take the best salesperson off the floor
Mhm.
because I knew who that person was very specifically, and I happened to know that her best skill was in selling. She didn't want to train. She could care less if anybody else did a good job selling. So leave her where she is. You
Mhm.
have to understand each personality and the skill set required." And I worked for as a consultant for another company where they had this, they had an HR person, a designated person, and they had this company flow chart with all these different titles. And I sat down with someone. I picked one person who I knew I could have a nice rapport with and who understood, been there long enough. I said, "What does this job title do? What does this job title do? Who is this person? Where is that person?" There were so many crossovers and redundancy that they kept, when someone failed at their elevated position, the Peter principle, everybody rises to their level of incompetency. They
Mhm.
just kept going, adding new job titles. And I was told to reduce the payroll. In one afternoon, in this conversation with this trusted person, maybe it was two, being honest, I took $1 million and put it on the profit line by taking it off the payroll expense line,
Mhm.
just getting rid of positions that actually did not truly exist, but they never wanted to let that person go or find the better place for them. So human resources, and the bigger the company, and this wasn't a very big company. So when I say $1 million, that was significant for that size company. But when you think about the size of major companies,
Mhm.
That could be millions, multi-millions of dollars that you take off the payroll and put it right on your bottom line.
Right. Right.
Who is best suited to be in the human capital position?
Mm.
Panoramic view.
Some of the best HR leaders that I've worked with have had a balance of their dynamic, can really connect with the people out there,
Sure.
but they have this analytical side. They're able to understand data. And the reason why is because your operators, those people that are our internal clients that are keeping the business moving forward, they are looking at data every day. And for you to get a seat at the table, you need to speak their language. And
Ah,
when I've seen HR fall short, it's when they don't have those Excel, those analytical skills. They're not looking at their data. For them to have a conversation with you need to speak their language. You need to understand what their needs are, which means you've got to be looking at the same data as they are. And so having that dynamic, engaging personality while at the same time having that analytical business sense of uh, the data tells a story. Be able to
mhm.
walk into these meetings and have the same data as they do, but having taken the time to analyze it and say, this is what I'm seeing. Now you've got their respect. Now you've got their attention. And you've gone one step further and you have a solution as well.
Ah, there you go. Presenting the problem is step one. What's the solution? But the
Right.
numbers don't lie. So when you talk about the analyticals and the stats, what have you, um, that's your forensic evidence, if you will. If we were crime fighters, that would be your forensic evidence. Is there a particular industry that you work in most closely?
I've I've had a range of industries that I've worked in. Right now, I'm in the civil engineering realm, and I've skirted slightly outside of HR into training and organizational development. So I'm the director of training and organizational development at RIC Engineering. Their corporate office is in San Diego, but we have 11 other locations throughout the US. And I moved from consulting to, they were actually my premier clients. And, they thought, hey, Amy, you're great. I thought, hey, Rick, you're great. And we said, let's make it official. And so in February will be 1 year that I will have
Oh,
been with them.
oh,
So,
very good. No,
yeah.
I know for me too. When you go in as a consultant, then that's like the best job interview, and that it gives you a lot of leverage when they tell you that they want you to stay. Stay. You can't go. You can't go. Yes, that's a nice experience. You did mention, and I should have said this at the top of our discussion, that you are a certified organizational development coach. I mean,
Yes.
that is an amazing credential to
Mhm.
have. Um, a lot of power that you bring to the table.
Mhm.
Another word that I saw when I was getting to know you a little bit more was the word intentional.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think there's a lot of variations of the theme. I also learned that you really have three main talks that you give as a motivational speaker.
Mhm.
Am I right about that?
Yes.
Three talks.
Mhm.
Could you share a little bit about what those three talks are all about?
Yes. Well, my primary one is how you show up matters. And I came upon this through, well, let me take a step back.
Sure.
I created a framework called Start with Compassion. This is that compassion word that you brought in, right? I created this after leaving the corporate world a couple years ago, and I took some time off. And I realized that I wasn't showing myself compassion. And the thing is that you can't give what you don't have. You can't, right? So it's like pouring from an empty cup. If you don't fill your cup, you go to pour it, nothing comes out. So when we don't show ourselves compassion, but then somebody is in need of compassion from us, it's virtually impossible to give it because our compassion cup is absolutely empty, right? So I created this framework called Start with Compassion. Compassion is an acronym.
Oh,
As I was working the framework that I created, and can I just briefly go over what the compassion acronym is? Is that all right?
I
Should I do
love acronyms. I
that?
make them
Okay.
up all day long. Hit me.
Okay, great. So C is connected, understanding that we are all connected to each other, whether we realize it or not. Think about somebody that's in your world, right? A circle that you have. And when somebody in that circle, maybe they're not well, something in their life is difficult, that circle, you can feel that. There's a change in the dynamic. We're all connected, right? O is open minded, right? You're in a different path, Beth, than I am. And that is all right. In fact, it's pretty awesome. Okay. And understanding that there's differences, that's okay. That's a good thing. And then M is moments. How you can make a conscious decision of how you show up in any moment. And when you think about the doors that have opened for you, were you in a positive mindset or a negative mindset? Probably in a positive mindset. How you show up matters. This is where that talk was born, in me realizing, looking back on my life and thinking, Amy, you really sabotaged yourself. You didn't prepare. You brought in, you were in a negative mindset from that previous meeting, and you brought that negativity into this next meeting, and you fell short here, right? Or, wow, you really brought it today. You really, really brought it today. And how you showed up made a direct impact. I want to go back to the word intentional that you brought up. Getting intentional about what you want can help you show up as your best self. Okay. All right. So the P is patience and perspective. Sometimes life can be challenging. Sometimes we go through struggles. Let's be patient with ourselves. We don't know the struggle that the person sitting across from us, down the street, across the world from us is going through. We don't know their struggle. But being patient can open our perspective. So P is patience and perspective. And when we are patient, it can help create a more compassionate mindset. And that can soften our perspective. And imagine what this world would look like if we all raised our compassion meter just
A
an inch,
little.
just a little, right? So A is awareness and acceptance. Understanding that, somebody may say something to you and it might trigger you, it may hook you, cause you to, or lead you to feel certain emotions that are uncomfortable. That's not on them. Take a minute and figure out, where is this coming from? Why did that frustrate me? Why did that hurt me? What's going on? Or maybe you say something and it triggers somebody else and you see that their demeanor has changed. Give them some space. Don't go digging. Don't go probing. This isn't about you. Just give them the space, right? So being aware and then accepting whatever that is. Don't go in with judgment. Just accept. It's okay. Whatever it is, we'll get through it. Okay. So then the first S is the single most critical component of the compassion framework. It's silence the judger. And I've really alluded to this throughout, of that voice that can sometimes show up in us. I don't know about you, Beth, but sometimes I am my worst critic. Nobody says the things to me that I have said to me about myself. I've worked really hard to turn this dial down. So I've gotten better at it. But there was time where it was just negativity that I would say to myself all the time, and silence that judger, right? And then what about when we judge somebody else? Again, somebody across the street, down the way from us, across the planet, we don't know their story. We have no idea what their story is, but we see something and maybe it doesn't align with what we would do. And well, I would never do that. I don't know why they're doing that. And we create this whole scenario. And what we're doing is we're robbing them of their autonomy and their truth. We're othering them and we're making it about us. The story that we're creating is the information that's in our mind. And so, again, if we find ourselves going into that judgment about somebody else or ourselves, the compassion framework says, let's just turn the volume down on that judgmental voice. So, the second S is stimulated. Here's the beauty, everything that we've put, the C, the O, the M, the P, the A, the first S, once we've created this foundation, okay, and we find ourselves in a moment where we're like, I think I could help somebody. And maybe that somebody is you. Maybe it's self compassion that needs to happen, whatever it is. We start to feel stimulated. We start to realize, I think I could really make a difference here. Okay. That leads us to the I. Now we're interested. That interest turns to being invested. Now that we're invested, we're going to get intentional. Let's put together a plan. What are we going to do? Right? That's that I. Intentionality, that's your motor. That's what gets you moving forward. So then here at this point, you actually do whatever compassionate act this is. And there's data out there that has shown that when we do a good deed, it's called the helper's high. I don't know if you've heard of it. I'm sure you've felt it doing the work that you do, where it's dopamine and oxytocin starts to fire off in our brain and it elevates, it boosts our mood. Now, think about the best ideas that come to you. Is it when you're in a good mood or a bad mood? It's literally like a ray of sunshine going into your mind and opening these doors, right? And all of a sudden, innovation and collaboration and engagement starts to happen because your mood has been boosted. Now, think about the wheel that can happen if we start to live a more compassionate life. Our lifestyle is infused with compassion. Now we're elevating everything across the board. So I'm talking about onward and upward, but that's the O. But then the N is new heights and horizons, because now your mind has shifted from a judgmental, I'm going to hold myself back, to a new heights and horizons. We're boosting the chemicals in our brain. All of this stuff can happen, and you can transform your life by working the Start with Compassion framework. So, thank you for letting me share that. Before I tell you about my talks, do you have anything you want to share on this? Because you let me talk for a long time just now.
Oh, no, no, no. I loved it. I love all of it. And again, telling you that I'm a common sense kind of person. I loved that there was a balance here, that it was about how you treat yourself and how you react and how you treat others, or how you react to how others treat you. And in all of those things, there's opportunities. And I wrote it down when you said it. We've all heard the saying that it's 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. So like that snowballing effect. Remember years and years ago, the game that we used to play called telephone, where you'd
Yes.
whisper in somebody, and the beginning message got oh my God, it got destroyed. And depending on how many people, the last message was not even recognizable to how it began. And there's so much danger in that. And we were talking about technology a little bit earlier from the social media perspective and whatnot, is that it's so easy to draw a rapid conclusion because the world kind of demands that of us. Like we don't have time to, well, let me think about that and I'll get back to you. Everybody wants it now and spontaneous, and we're never dialed down. So I loved that connected open-mindedness, the moments, take advantage of each moment, the patience. Oh my God, couldn't we all use that? Perspective, awareness, and acceptance. Silence the judge about yourself and about others. The world would change if we did that. Stimulated, when you then have that good sense, it's when you want to do something for someone else. Isn't that kind of sharing? Isn't that what we teach little children to do?
Yes.
And then interested, invested, and then to the intentionality, new heights and new horizons. I love that. Thank you so much. Next.
Thank you for letting me share it. So, as I was working the framework myself after I created it, because I would have things that happened in my life, and I would work the framework. I would say, okay, Amy, you're going into a judgmental place. Let's, be patient, be open minded. Let's see how your perspective changes on this. And I started to realize that I was self sabotaging by the way I was showing up. I was preventing goodness from coming into my life because I was going into a place of bitterness or a place of resentment or whatever fear-based emotions I was having as a result of whatever I was feeling. And so
Was
by
that, let me stop you. Was that based on the environment that you were walking into?
that was based on, you know, life, just walking this planet, Beth, can sometimes be difficult, right? And by the time you get to my age, there's a whole lot of baggage that you have, right? And I had not taken care of myself. So I actually started seeing a therapist, and that therapist helped me deal with some trauma from my childhood, some really big trauma. But I was acting out because I hadn't gotten the help that I needed. And so then once I showed myself compassion, started prioritizing my needs, my life began to change. But
Beautiful.
really, and so it was me working this framework that helped me start showing up as my best self. And I said, I'm not the only one that has this struggle.
No,
I
no.
need to do a talk on how you show up matters. So, how you show up matters really goes into not just things that you can do to show up as your best self, but what's stopping you, right? Sometimes it's toxic people in our
Mhm.
lives, right? The relationships that you have, how reciprocal are they, right? Some of us are just givers. We give, give, give. Other times, you know, the relationships that you really care about, are you showing up in those relationships, right? So that reciprocity, it's a two-way street. It's not just what are you getting, but what are you giving? And are you giving to the right people in your life? How you show it matters, right? So that's one of them. And then another one is compassionate mindset. Compassionate mindset really delves deepest into the Start with Compassion framework. They're all three are rooted in the compassion framework,
Yeah.
but compassionate mindset goes a little bit deeper. And so much of it is focused on the workplace. How are you showing up in the workplace? I'm going to give you an example. So when we talk about the general framework, connected, understanding we're all connected to each other, okay?
Mhm.
From a workplace perspective, leaders, how connected are you to your team members? Do you know what motivates each team member? Do you know what challenges they're experiencing personally, professionally? Do you know what kind of coaching or development that they need? Right? How connected are you to your team members? That's just an example of how it expands and goes specifically into the work environment. And it's not just leaders, it's how connected are you to your team members,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Are you being a supportive team member? Do you see that you have a team member that's struggling? Is there something that you could do to help your team member? Okay. So that is the compassionate mindset, is it really looks at how can you create a more compassionate mindset and what's preventing you from having a more compassionate mindset. So that's where that one goes into. And then the third one is really about empowerment, and it's removing the barriers that are stopping us from moving forward. First, identifying those barriers,
Yeah.
right? Getting really honest with yourself of this is what I want, but this is what's preventing me. Now, what am I going to do about it? Right? What am I going to do about it? And what is it? All three of these have in common outside of compassion. It's getting intentional. It's all about getting intentional. You look at the people in your life, whether you know them or you don't. When I say the people in your life, that there may be somebody out in the world that inspires you. Some athlete, some CEO, another parent that lives down the street from you. There may be somebody that you hold in a regard that's very high. Okay.
Mhm.
But what is that person doing that makes them stand out to you? There's something that they're doing. It's not accidental. There's probably some incredible intention that makes them show up in a way that makes you go, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
Now, what are you doing to get intentional about what you want?
Yeah. All of a sudden, the word communication came into my mind. That communicating, whether it's verbal, body language, smiling at someone, showing support for a coworker who you know is struggling, who's had a significant loss in their life, dealing with a child, whatever. That sometimes just silence can be a magnificent way to communicate. Um, with a smile, with a, with touching someone, a pat on the back or whatever can go a long, long way. And I think, do you agree? Is that a way to demonstrate compassion and good intention?
I'm so glad you said that because compassion doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be time consuming. It can be, just like you said, just a smile,
Yeah.
a nod, a and you're absolutely right. Sometimes silence is the best thing, meaning somebody's gone through something traumatic and maybe just, hey, just wanted to say hi.
And
I see you.
yeah,
I
just,
see you, but I'm not going to come in and probe. See, the thing is that sometimes we make things about us. And really, it has nothing to do with us. Don't
no,
make it about you. Don't
no.
make it about you. Okay. So but see, you have to be present. You have to be present to not make it about you. And really, like you're saying, connecting with that other person, reading their body language
Mm.
and saying, okay, this person does not want me to ask this question right now. I can feel it. Like
Well,
they
it's none
just,
of my business. It's not, I mean, here I'm asking you a series of questions. It's what we do here on BEP Talks, but in personal life, people often, they'll talk to me, people near and dear to me. Well, what did he say? What did she say? I go, I didn't ask. Why did you not ask? I said, because if they wanted me to know, they would have said something. And
yes.
in the right time and in the right place, on their schedule, on their need, not mine.
Mhm.
And it's just different personalities, and we need them. It does make the world more interesting. Many, many minutes ago, I asked you, has the world become less compassionate? You saddened me. You said you're not sure compassion really ever existed. I like to believe that it did, that maybe in a world of more gentility, shall we say, where everybody wasn't connected to technology, and we actually spent time just talking to people. That was its own form of communication. Well, it is communication, but entertainment as well. My fear is that this can become a generational issue. And what made me think that is when you said, don't make it about you, because the world doesn't end at the tip of everybody's nose. That's the beginning. That's the beginning of what's out there. Talk me off the ledge here, Amy. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me that it's not going to be a generational thing, that we still can show compassion with your formula and be available emotionally to other people. And I believe that when you are, it always comes back to you in multiples.
So let me go back because when I said I don't know if it has been, I was referring to the work environment. I don't know if the
Okay.
workplace. I 100% agree that we have had, like, when I think of the world that I was raised in, there was
Mhm.
so much compassion around me.
Mm,
You know, the
mm,
love, the unconditional love that I received from my grandmother and the way the neighbors all took care of each
mhm,
other, it just was, I had this incredible upbringing.
mhm.
And so, and I've seen that change. I don't think we're as connected as we are, but we have a choice. And what I mean by that is there's been several neighbors that have moved into our neighborhood. And when we moved into our neighborhood in 2007, I made homemade pasta sauce, and made a little gift bag, got a little thing of dry pasta and made homemade pasta sauce and gave gift bags and said, "Hi, we're the new neighbors, Fred and Amy. Nice to meet you. We live over here with a little white fence." When new neighbors come in, I bring flowers, I bring fruit, I bring something and say, "Hey, welcome." Okay? Because I want what I was raised in. How
But
you
you see
show
what you
up.
did there, Amy? What you just said is you were playing both sides of it. When you were the new one in the neighborhood, you were the giver. When others were the new ones in the neighborhood, you were the giver.
Yeah. But see, if that's what you want, if you want to be connected, then connect,
Right.
right? How you show up matters. And listen, the people who don't reciprocate, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Focus on the people that do.
Right. Right.
That's where you put your energy. So I don't believe it's a generational thing. To go back to your question is I've seen in the decades that I've been on this planet that it's it's the circles that we find ourselves in.
Mm.
I don't think it's a generational thing. And I also think what you're looking for, you will find. So if you're looking for a flaw on the wall,
Oh, oh,
you're going
yeah,
to find that flaw. But if you're
absolutely.
looking for beautiful artistry, you're going to find that as well. And if you don't, go create it, you know? And
I
so
love that.
I don't think it's a generational thing, but I think we have choices,
Hmm.
right? And so what dial are you going to tune into, you know? Because there is a lot of compassion out there. There is a lot of compassion out there.
I am so happy to hear you as an expert say that. When you're doing your keynote speaking, describe for me who's your audience? Who are you typically speaking to?
I love that question. I think it's really, when you look at an organization, there are key influencers within the organization. Maybe it's an HR leader, maybe it's the CEO, maybe it's the head of operations, maybe it's the head of the DEI and B. Okay. You have values. Companies have values. They have cultural initiatives, they have DEI and B initiatives, all of this. These are where we want to get to. These are outcomes that we want to accomplish. A lot of times, where these fall short is the how.
Yes.
They struggle with the how. And that's where my motivational talks come in, is it's the how. It breaks down and helps people understand, hey, I can't change you, but I can change me.
Right. That's so, I love that you said that because I just wrote something this morning for something completely different. And I said, most people are in touch with their own why and
Mm,
their own what. Now
mhm.
it's the how.
It's the
That
how.
the how. You know what? You know why. How. So
But
I so agree. So when you're speaking, are you speaking? Who hires you? Who do you do public speaking for?
yeah, so it's there's actually there's a company that just hired me, and one of the things that they had said was we we want to further our DEI and B initiative without DEI and B actions. We want to infuse more kindness. And so a friend of mine, a colleague of mine said, you need to talk to Amy because that's what she specializes in. It's just kindness is compassion. It's just a different way to say it,
Let
right?
me stop you. So again, going back, we're all in the same conversation. DEI, you're also saying DEI and B. Can you explain that to viewers?
Diversity and inclusion. And then the E is equity, equality. It just depends. Sometimes they say
Mhm,
both
mhm.
equity, and then the belonging. So the thing, and the belonging, that's compassion. That is
Oh,
because, right? Because we can create diversity and inclusion, okay?
yes.
But we can create these initiatives, but what are we doing to make people feel like they belong,
Ah,
right? So I'm I'm a vegan. I've been vegan for July will be eight years now. And there have been times where, regardless of the environment, I've gone in and I've felt very seen and I felt like I belong because there's something for me to eat and enjoy along with everybody else. And then there have been other times where that hasn't been the case. And
yes.
I felt very unseen. I felt very excluded. And I'm telling you, what a difference when somebody goes just a little bit extra
Oh.
and listen, salad, it doesn't cut it.
I have a niece. I have a niece who's a vegan, and God bless her. Whenever we're having, parties, gatherings, family events, whatever, it's all right. Okay, and what are we going to have for Katie? And whether it's just, pasta with a marinara sauce, or we grill a big mushroom kind of a thing and build her
Mhm,
own kind of stuff, and it actually becomes kind of fun. And I will tell you how much she appreciates it.
mhm.
And
Yes.
I'm not a vegan, but I'm a very picky eater. And I've been in the homes of some of my dearest, dearest friends, invited for dinner, who they've known me. I don't even want to tell you how many decades. And they're wonderful hosts. They provide wonderful atmosphere and food, but I have an empty plate.
Mm,
And there's a weird feeling about that. Did
mhm,
you not know for the last 50 years that we've known each other that I don't eat that kind of a thing?
mhm.
So yeah,
Yes.
the B, very, very important. So
Mhm,
do you do events? Do you do workshops? Tell me
mhm,
about that, where people can you just have a body of work, your own experiences, which again I think is always so so important to everybody's own story, their own journey, their own background, which is usually how they discover their main passion and their beliefs. It's what road have you walked? Where have
mhm,
you stumbled? What forks in the road did you come to and take a different path that really changed your life? And that's really the whole point of BEP Talks. Do you where can people, I'm going to show them where they can connect with you, but where can people connect with you at events or talks, what have you?
mhm. Yeah, well, I'm actually gonna be in Miami for the business show. I believe it's the largest small business conference, in the US, I believe. It is March 7th and 8th, 6th and 7th or 7th and 8th. I can't recall off the top of my head. And I'm speaking the second day. So I'm doing a master class on how you show up matters. So that's one way. And so that's Miami in March, the business show. Um, I am available virtually and in person to come and speak to companies. It can be a motivational talk, and I've got everything from I'm doing a 30-minute talk next week for a company. I can do a 45-minute talk. It just depends on the timeline that people are looking for. And when I answer your question about workshops, I do workshops as well. I can come in and do like a 2.5 or 2 hour workshop. And typically that'll come with some type of worksheet where it'll be the talk that I'm doing, but I'll stop throughout it and I'll work,
Right,
ask the
right.
questions in specific timing. And if people want to share, they can, but it's not mandatory. But let's take this and let's really dig into to this.
Yeah.
So workshops, motivational talks, lunch and learns, all of that.
First of all, I just put up how people can reach out to you, connect back to you. What a gorgeous picture of a
Oh,
gorgeous lady. That is such a stunning picture. When I saw that, I said, I have to put that up there. Here's a link for our viewers to go to, and it will connect you directly to Amy, where you can read more about those 3 talks that she shared such brilliant information with us today. You can learn how and the why, again, I think is very evident. The where, it can be virtual. How, we're talking a lot about how today. How to book Amy, to bring her into your company, into your life, in any way, because you can hear from this talk today. And this was all, a very spontaneous conversation, which I absolutely loved. That it's not just showing up, it's how you show up. Be willing to show up. Bring your best to the table, to the game, wherever it may be. Don't show up expecting that everybody else is there to give it to you. There has to be a balance here. It has to be a sharing. It has to be a community spirit. And I think that's how everybody, and it also, I think, kind of when someone does that, and I've been a party to this, I've been the party to it, I'm going to say, is that when you do show up like that, the next time you all get together, others show up in a better way. There's a little bit of that competitive edge there in the workplace. And they go, whoa, yeah, Beth really had a lot to say that last time. And yeah, she brought a lot of stuff to the table. I better bring something next time, because when it's your turn to speak, you want to say something that's worth listening to and that will have a difference in the workplace and in your life and the lives of so many others. Amy, I can't thank you enough for sharing this time with us. And I'm so happy that you are on B.E.P Talks, because we're going to put you out there. We're going to promote you. We're going to share your wisdom, your expertise, your beliefs, your experiences, your passions, compassions with a wide audience out there. And you're just a wonderful example of the kind of people that we have here on B.E.P Talks. And as I always say for everybody, may the best always be yet to come. And you're in charge of that. Amy taught us that's a choice. Make sure that your best is always ahead of you. And in doing that, you'll make everybody else's life a little nicer, a little sweeter, a little better. And that is our wish here at the GSEW always, that the best is yet to come. So again, Amy, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing your wonderful words and perspective in such a compassionate way and with such great intentionality. Thank you so much. To our viewing audience, thank you so much. And until we talk again, bye for now.
Thank you.